Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to mumble! Introducing first, in the black corner, in his trademark office suit jacket tie, with a record of over 8,000 tax returns and 1,000 vast statements lodged, standing 5'11" and weighing in at... He is the man with the tax plan, the sultan of spreadsheets, the baron of vast statements, the king of ka-ching. Hailing from Ballarat, Victoria, Peter Angel! And in the white corner, sporting his struggling artist casuals, with a record of 1.5 feature-length films, 1 web series and numerous award-winning shorts, standing 5'10" and weighing in at... The Kubrick of Claptrap, the Mac Daddy of the MacGuffin, the Caesar of subtext, the champion of all things indie, the arrogant know-it-all Israeli bastard, now hailing from Melbourne, Victoria, the unpronounceable... How do you say this? Itai Guberman! Sit back and enjoy as they trade opinion jabs, fighting for their favourites and battling politely through the best and worst of... well, anything they see fit, really. The accountant versus the filmmaker. The financial consultant versus the artist. What can possibly go wrong? Tune in and find out on the Best and Worst podcast, where it ain't all black and white.
Hello and welcome to the Best and Worst podcast. My name is Peter Angel. I'm talking to Itai Guberman. Hello, Itai.
Hey, Peter. Another week, another podcast.
Exactly right. And today, well, I think it'll be a good one. We've got the Best and Worst Eddie Murphy films. And for once, it's pretty obvious which ones are in the better side of it, I think. And there's been some stinkers, haven't there?
It's a little bit of everything. There were some stinkers there. There were some decent ones there. Overall, it's probably, still above average.
Yep.
Some of them I enjoyed revisiting. Some of them I caught for the first time, which was interesting, especially the more recent ones. I've sort of kind of struggled to get to them in the past, so this podcast gave me the push. But yeah, overall, I think I had a good time with watching some of these, even the not so good ones.
Yeah, I'm the same. I hadn't got around to seeing anything of his probably that he'd made in the last 10 years. And so this was enough to, get me to watch them. And there were some real surprises, some very good films in there, which I sort of thought he'd left most of his best work behind in the 80s, but apparently not.
Yeah, I mean, he was more of the sort of the star in the 80s, even though maybe all of his films, actually, he wasn't really starring by himself. There was always some kind of either like a partner or a sidekick, someone who was either just a bit less than or just on par with him, almost as if they thought he couldn't carry a film by himself.
Yeah, a lot of them were the odd couple type of films where...
Yes.
Yeah, not just the characters, but also the actors, where you had Nick Nolte, who was perhaps on his way down, maybe, or going through a bit of a slump. You had Dan Aykroyd.
The interesting thing with Nick Nolte is the first 48 hours, Nick Nolte was the star of the film. He was the name.
Yep.
And in another 48 hours, it was flipped.
Yes.
Then Eddie Murphy was the sort of the headliner, and Nick Nolte was supposed to be more supporting, although the roles were kind of even, I think, in both.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was interesting, watching that and then going into another 48 hours and seeing Eddie Murphy's name come up first. I was like, oh, okay.
Well, that's right. And it was, I guess, that's probably a good place to bring up the fact that Best Defense, we agreed not to even throw that into his films. He had a very small part. It was a Dudley Moore film, and it was obvious to everyone concerned that it was going to be a stinker. So they basically got the oddest couple, I guess, that they could find, and they got Eddie Murphy to play this tank instructor, and it was basically just a bit that they tacked on. So we didn't even bother looking at it again, did we?
Yeah, I was actually trying to rack my brain thinking when Eddie Murphy made his comeback, but I think that was also in the films that we're not going to include, which are the Shreks.
That's it. Yeah, his biggest films, but because they're animated, we've decided that we're looking at films of an actor, and probably voice work is only half the job, that we just don't include animated when looking at actors.
Yeah, it just makes it a bit too difficult. As far as Shrek goes, playing Donkey, he just did so well in that it was just made it into sort of a comeback for him, where he started popping up in films again.
Yeah.
Which was great. But yeah, it's a shame we can't include that, or Mulan. I think he did a voice there as well.
That's it. Yep.
But aside for those, I think we pretty much sort of, tried to include all of them. I mean, not all of them made it onto our lists, but we did consider.
That's right. So knocking those out, there's 33 films that we're looking at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, felt like more.
Well, yes and no, because a lot of the films sort of felt very similar, either to his own work or to other people's. And then there were some real standouts as well. But I know what you mean. Even though most of them were an hour and a half to 2 hours maximum, trying to get as many of these rewatched as possible was not a chore, but it did take a bit of work.
Yeah, and also sort of racking my brain trying to remember some of the ones I have seen, just to make sure that I don't do them an injustice by not including them or putting them on a worse list. I did rewatch quite a few of these, yeah.
Well, I'll start off with some numbers, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, so I'll go through the top 10 films as far as IMDb goes, and also the bottom 4 or 5.
Start with the bottom. Always let's go worst first and see.
Okay, so the worst film on IMDb was Pluto NASH with 3.8.
That's the lowest score out of everything?
That's his lowest score. It's
boo.
Even with Best Defense, but we're not looking at that one.
I'm still going to boo.
Yeah, fair enough. And we may talk about some of these films later. Some of them, might not be worth talking about, but we'll get to them. Then the next one is Norbit with 4.1.
Oof. Maybe high. Maybe that's high.
Then we've got The Nutty Professor 2, The Clumps. That was 4.4.
Yeah, it's about right.
A Vampire in Brooklyn was his fifth worst at 4.6 on IMDb.
Yep.
And then his fifth worst was Dr. Dolittle 2 at 4.7. So they're the bad films as far as the majority of people.
Yeah, most of those, I think, pop up in my worst list. Pluto NASH doesn't pop up in either of my lists. It's not a great film, but I think it's not as bad as his absolute worst, I think.
Not a 3.8?
Nah. I think it's I think it's a little over 5, It passes. It just isn't great.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of that had to do with expectation and budget and all kinds of things. So
right, so moving to his top 10.
Mm-hmm.
So his 10th best on IMDb was Bowfinger with a 6.4.
Wow, that's low.
I would have thought so too. I will get to it. I really like that film, but I think it's should be at least a 7, surely.
Oh, yeah, I'm very surprised.
Yeah. Then number 9 was Dreamgirls with 6.5, which again seems a bit low.
Yeah, it's a very, very decent film, but I think we talked about this earlier. I just kind of not sure how to deal with it as an Eddie Murphy film. I think his role was a bit too small in it. He was nominated for an Academy Award and won the Golden Globe for it. So
he was very good in it, but definitely not an Eddie Murphy film as such.
No, and I didn't think he was even the sort of the main supporting role. So it's like, why was he nominated? I'm not sure, because that film was, as far as the performances, they were all good. Yeah, I can't pick a bad performance out of that film.
No, I'm wondering, IMDb, it's a weird thing. Maybe some people watched it thinking it was going to be another Beverly Hills Cop or something like that, and when it wasn't funny, they voted it down perhaps. I don't know. It seems a little low at 6.5.
Yeah, no, it should be at least probably 7.5, yeah.
Speaking of low, his 8th top film, Beverly Hills 2, also at 6.5.
Yeah, I think it should be higher than that, but as far as placing in his top 10, yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, then at number 7 was Life at a 6.8.
Wow. I expected it to be lower because as far as word of mouth and what people were talking about the time it came out, I don't know anyone who liked it. I actually think it's a pretty decent film, but yeah, interesting.
Yeah, number 6, 48 Hours, a 6.9.
Okay, that's low. That is low. Yeah, that's yeah.
That's a slap in the face, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I felt it. I could still see the mark on my cheek. Yeah.
Number 5, Coming to America. That was a 7, so a good solid 7.
Yeah, that's high.
Yeah. Number 4, Dolomite Is My Name at 7.3.
With a bullet.
Yeah,
it was his most recent film or completed film, and a very good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Number 3, Beverly Hills Cop. Also 7.3.
Made the top 3.
Yeah. Number 2, Trading Places, 7.5.
Wow.
And the number 1, Eddie Murphy film on IMDb with 7.6, Mr. Church.
What? I mean, I can sort of understand that, but yeah, I'm still very surprised. Yeah.
So yeah, it is a bit surprising. It's
a good movie.
It is, and I'm actually a bit surprised that some of the numbers are a little low.
Yeah.
I think that perhaps is a 7.6, but then perhaps some other films maybe are 8s.
Especially those kind of, what would now be considered as kind of Eddie Murphy classics. Beverly Hills Cop and Trading Places and 48 Hours.
My favourite part of this, and the bit that probably nobody else cares about, but being an accountant, I'm putting it in there anyway, is the best and worst return on investment as far as what the film's made.
Yeah, but we should also always mention that it's not quite correct. We're only using a small part of the figures that need to go into
just
it.
Box office.
So,
right. Box
so
office.
it's just box office compared to budget.
Yeah. So that does skew things a little bit,
Yeah.
Particularly Netflix and all that sort of stuff.
Back then, DVD, Blu-ray, TV, any other sales that they would have made at the time would have factored in. So a lot of films that may look like they flopped back then probably, broke even and more than. So
generally that would be the case, but his worst film as far as return on investment,
PLUTO NASH.
The Adventures of Pluto Nash, 7% return on investment, a budget of $100 million, only took 7.1 million.
That's crazy. And that's also when very few films were made for that much money. When you watch the film, even by the standards of the time, it doesn't look like $100 million film. The look of it is a bit low budgety.
Yeah, it's 1980s, 1990s look, but it was made in 2002.
And even, some of the green screen work, the After Effects, it's just very, very kind of poor. It feels like it was almost made that way on purpose to give the film a certain comedic look, but it just doesn't hold up for $100 million back then.
Yep.
But at the same time, if you disregard all of that, it wasn't terrible. I actually thought it was a fun film. Not a great film, and not even great, on his list. It didn't make my top 15.
His 33rd best film, as far as return on investment, with a 9% return on investment, $8 million budget, $685,000 at the box office. Mr. Church, his number one film on IMDb, is his second worst film as far as return on investments.
There's a huge reason for that. That film was not made for cinema. That film was made for Netflix. It was made straight for streaming. They do a thing where they have it on at the cinemas for maybe, a couple of weeks or maybe a few days. I'm not even sure. And they don't advertise it hard. It's basically just formality of some sort.
Just for the Academy. In order to be able to be nominated for an Oscar, it has to be released for a couple of weeks. That rule changed this year because of COVID, so that's why nearly everything's on streaming this year.
I don't think it can be looked at as that, because it was never going to make any money in the cinemas if it's not really showing at the cinemas. And even if the screenings that they had were full, it still would not have made anywhere near, approaching the budget. So...
I agree. We can. So there's a reasonable excuse for Mr. Church at number 3. Absolutely no excuse at number 32 for Holy Man.
Yeah.
Budget of $60 million, brought in $12 million, 20% return on investment.
It brought in $12 million?
Yep.
Wow.
And $61,719. But on $60 million, that's terrible.
Yeah, but again, it's inflated budget for a film that should not have cost as much. And, when you kind of break it down, it wasn't a terrible film. Again, it just, I think, because his films were at that stage. What year was it made?
1998.
Yeah. Late 90s, early 2000s. His films, I just feel like, maybe it's because it was his production company or not, the budgets were inflated. So somebody's pockets were being padded, but it didn't go into the film. The film does not look like a huge budget film at the time. So
it doesn't. It looks like it could have been made for $6 million.
Easily.
$60 million. Yeah.
Easily. And it's not a bad film. I do think that Mike Myers did it better with Love Guru, but it's not bad. I kind of enjoyed it. It didn't make it onto any of my lists, but it's not a bad film. So
yep. And then his fourth worst, with a 42% return on investment, was Imagine That. So $55 million budget, just under $23 million at the box office. It's a kids' film, so it's a little bit surprising that it probably didn't bring in more than that.
So it's a film that was made for a lot more than it should have been made for. But I think it was almost made for the DVD audience at the time. And it did well on DVD, I think. Again, because it's a kid's film and especially on rental. It was rented a lot. I remember that, at that time.
Yeah, and it's not on either one of my lists. And
Same
I
here.
watched it recently. It's an okay film. You know, you watch it with your kids and things, but it's Eddie Murphy doing his usual shtick, and he's not bringing anything extra to it.
Yeah, he did go into that stage where he made a hell of a lot of sort of kiddies films. And a lot of them were not good. Some of them were okay. You know, none of them were terribly special.
Yeah. Right. So going to the more successful films, his number one on return investment, 2,260% return. So it had a budget of $14 million, brought in $316 million at the box office. Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah, not surprised.
Yeah.
Not surprised. Yeah.
It really is a film to watch at the cinema, isn't it? It just works. Yeah.
One of the things I noticed when I rewatched it was as soon as the soundtrack kicked in at the start of the movie, it just took me back to, you know, seeing it at the cinema. I was like, oh, yes, you know, just that sort of nostalgic feeling. All of a sudden, it's like everything comes back. And it's like, yeah, this is why I love this movie.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it has so many things going for it. It definitely justified, you know.
And again, at the box office, which is what we're looking at, it really is a film to see at cinema, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it you know, it's okay today to see it on a big screen at home and all that.
Yep.
It hasn't aged badly at all.
Yep. And then his number two film, Beverly Hills Cop 2. So
Wow.
return on investment, 1,071%. The budget on that one was double, $28 million, and it brought in almost the same, 299.9, nearly $300 million at the box office.
Nice.
Yeah. So he was on a winner with that.
Yeah, great sequel. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, well, I've got the figures in front of me, but they went to the well one time too many with Beverly Hills Cop 3, didn't they?
Yeah, it was a different film. I don't know. I think maybe because John Landis directed it, but it became slapsticky. They were trying to push the comedy part of it too much, and it just became a little bit, I don't know, like a kid's film. And Beverly Hills Cop is not a kid's film. So, yeah, it kind of lost me there with the third one.
Also weird because it was released 7 years later.
Yeah, and it's not terrible, but it's not good.
Yeah. But anyway, that isn't in the list of the top ones. Number 3 was Coming to America. Budget of $39 million, brought in $289 million at the box office.
I'm surprised that Trading Places is not in that list, in the top 3.
Yeah. Well, at number 4 is 48 Hours, $12 million budget, so relatively low budget, just under $79 million at the box office, so 657% return on investment.
Yeah.
And then just behind that is Trading Places. $15 million budget, $90 million at the box office, 603% return on investment.
Yeah. And the thing is, all of those films, because of the time they were made, would have made a hell of a lot more money from, DVD sales, some of them even VHS. And DVD sales and rentals. Those films made a lot of money. And they're still probably making money today on streaming.
Yeah, it would be. The 6th most profitable as far as box office go was The Nutty Professor. 500% return on investment, $54 million budget, $274 million at the box office. And then another one that I know is a favourite of yours, Dr. Dolittle.
Oh, God.
$71.5 million budget, $294 million at the box office.
But yeah, again, they're both not good films, but they're made for kids. And at that time when they were released, I mean, still today, but I guess because of COVID, it doesn't exist at the moment. Kids love going to see stuff at the cinema. Parents love taking kids to see stuff at the cinema. And I'm not surprised that those are high on that list.
And it is, as a parent, it is relatively hard to find a film that may entertain you, that will entertain the kids, where there isn't swearing. Like, it's incredibly hard to find those films, and I think it always has been.
Well, luckily I don't have kids, because if I would have had to go see those two at the cinemas, I may have slashed my wrists.
So, on that bright note, number 8, another 48 hours. So, $38 million budget, $153.5 million return. Box office.
Good film.
Yeah. So it's 400% return on investment. Then you've got The Golden Child, $25 million budget, about $80 million at the box office, and then number 10, Boomerang. So $42 million budget, $131 million at the box office, so 312% return on investment. So that's the top 10. If you go through further, most of his films, outside the bottom 7 or 8 films, at least made their money back. Most of them made at least twice their money back at box office. And I know you've got to take out advertising, you've got to take out the cinema's share and all the rest of it, but it does give you a bit of an indication of how successful they are once you add in all the other bits and pieces.
Out of curiosity, if you have the list there outside the top 10, I've got a couple I'm interested in.
Yep.
Well, one is Dolomite.
Yes, so that is a Netflix film. So couldn't find the budget, and there is no box office.
Okay.
They don't report it.
Okay. So it wasn't, the figures are not available, let's call it that.
Yeah.
The other one is Bowfinger.
Bowfinger, not terribly successful. $55 million budget and about $99 million at the box office. It's surprising when it was a Steve Martin film as well.
Yeah, but it's about right. But again, that film should have been made for 20 mil.
Yeah.
And it's one of my favorite Eddie Murphys. But yeah. What about Meet Dave? Because that's one that, like you described, it's a film sort of for kids, but also crosses over to adults in a way.
And it didn't, So $60 million budget and just over $50 million at the box office. So it didn't ever make its money back at the box office under those conditions.
Yeah, no, the budget was, again, inflated, but it probably would have at least broken even with DVDs and all that. I don't know, it just feels a bit greedy, I think, some of these budgets. But yeah, there was one more I was curious about because we talked about Dreamgirls, because it was a big success as far as awards and critics and all the rest of it. So I didn't hear it mentioned there. So
no, so it did okay. $70 million budget though, and $155 million at the box office.
Oh yeah, not bad.
But soundtrack, DVD, everything else, I'm sure it did all right.
Funnily enough, I think it could have been made for a little bit less, but I can actually see the budget justified in that one. Yeah. Musicals kind of tend to cost a bit more. There's something, and it's not a straight musical, it's sort of half a musical, but yeah.
Well, not only that, it's Eddie Murphy. He's not doing a film for less than 10 million, surely.
At that time?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think if he would have wanted 10 million for that one, then they would have picked someone else.
To quote Dale Kerrigan, tell him he's dreaming.
Exactly. And the cast, I don't think, took most of that because it had Jamie Foxx, who was probably the highest paid there. He was sort of the hottest name at the time. Beyonce probably would have done it for not so much because she wanted to sort of break into acting. And, Jennifer Hudson that was her first role, which she won an Oscar for. Danny Glover is not, one asking for a hell of a lot. It's not in the millions, I don't think.
Yeah.
And I don't think Eddie Murphy took that much for it, but I don't know. Yeah, I think most of the budget there went into set design and some effects and locations, and because that film is, it's kind of all over the place. There's so many sets in it. And also for the rights to sort of loosely based on the Supremes. But yeah, no, a lot of those budgets are not justified. I just think that one is.
That's what the numbers say. Well, what about you? With these lists, I think we've gone at it a little bit differently. I've gone with my bottom 3 films and my top 10. How did you go?
Well, I kind of made some kind of a worst list, sort of top 5, but in one spot here, I have a number of films that I kind of, categorize all as one. But my worst 5, I'll do my 5 and 4 to get them out of the way, and then we can compare sort of a bottom 3, I should say.
Yeah.
My 5th worst Eddie Murphy of this list is, it's probably not right to call it the 5th worst film. I just think it was a big disappointment for me, and that's Showtime. At the time, Eddie Murphy and Robert De Niro in the same film was like something to see.
Well, because that was back when we thought Robert De Niro would only do decent films. Little did we know.
Yeah, and I have to say, I'm not sure if it's exactly correct or not, but there was a feeling like he was kind of phoning it in, but it was maybe a little bit to do with his character as well, because his character was, in a way, phoning it in the film.
Yeah.
So it's a tough one, but there was just nothing about it that excited me or really, was that entertaining. I watched it. I'm like, yeah, it's not terrible, but geez, it's disappointing. Eddie Murphy, it's like he was doing his best in it, I think. He was trying to lift the film, but it just wasn't enough. Yeah, so, Rene Russo was good to see in it.
Yep, and that wasn't in either one of my best or worst. That was just somewhere in the middle for me. That wasn't not
because
exceptional.
That's where it belongs. It's probably, I think it's got an IMDb rating of about 5.5, which is about right.
Yeah.
So as a film, it's probably not in that worst, but for me as a sort of a favorite list, I decided to kind of stick it there because, yeah, it was just so disappointing to me.
Yeah.
And my fourth worst is Vampire in Brooklyn.
Yep.
Which, again, I don't think it's horrible, but it's not good. It's a film that should have been better. It's a bit all over the place. I couldn't really work out, why they made it or why. I think the script was weak, although the premise was interesting.
That was also the film where Eddie Murphy wanted to do a horror film, so he got Wes Craven to direct it, and Wes Craven came to the film thinking he wanted to direct a comedy. And so there were issues on the set because Eddie Murphy and Wes Craven thought they were making a different film each. And so it ended up being neither, really.
Well, it was made in 95, and I think that it was trying to be a little bit like a Ghostbusters kind of feel to it. I think they were hoping to kind of get that market. But it's nowhere near as good as Ghostbusters. And Ghostbusters was made, if I'm not mistaken, in the sort of early to mid-'80s. So a decade later, making this film, trying to make it look a little bit like a film from 10 years ago, didn't work. It was just felt weak. And even though it had Angela Bassett in it,
yep,
and Kadeem Hardison, who at the time was kind of a name, and Joanna Cassidy, who I really like, it was, I wanted to like it. I really did. And I was just like, no, the writing was weak. And it's a shame too, because it was written by Eddie Murphy along with a few other people, but one of them was Charlie Murphy, his brother, who passed away in the last few years. Again, I thought the premise was good. So it could have been a really good film, but it ended up just being sort of a mishmash kind of film. It didn't work. And I'm not a massive Wes Craven fan, so yeah, I'm not surprised, I guess.
Yeah, for me, it just didn't seem to know what it wanted to be, and it was it's not in my worst three, but it would be towards closer to the bottom than the top of his films, that's for sure.
Yeah, I didn't sort of hate it, but when I sort of started breaking it down, I felt like it really should be in a worst list of his. And that's why I put it in there. Also, similarly to Showtime for sort of the disappointment factor, but also because it was just very, very unfunny comedy, and neither funny nor scary. And the storyline just didn't work. It just felt copied from other things, and nothing original about it.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised that it flopped.
No, it didn't do well at all.
Mm-hmm.
So
now we're on to top 3 worst sort of films. And my number 3, which for a similar reason again, is that whole disappointment factor, and that's I Spy.
Yeah.
I thought, originally, it's a remake. Originally thinking about, Owen Wilson at the time was on fire.
Yep, he was very hot. Yep.
Yeah, he's so hot right now. And Eddie Murphy, and I thought that kind of combination would work. I guess Eddie Murphy is no Ben Stiller, because it didn't work. The film was very, very boring to me. Just didn't get anything out of it.
Yeah.
And then, it had Famke Janssen, who I like, Malcolm McDowell, Gary Cole. Quite a few, interesting names and interesting faces, and even Sugar Ray Leonard had a supporting kind of role in it.
Yeah, sort of as himself, but not quite. Yep.
Yeah, as a commentator. Yeah, no, it was just, again, disappointing.
Yeah.
IMDb has it at 5.4. I think it's probably about right. Maybe sort of more towards the 5 for me.
Yep. And another film, it cost $70 million to make and brought in 50-odd million. And again, you look at it and go, where's the $70 million gone?
Yeah. I just didn't know what to think about it. Bit of a nothing film for me.
Yeah. What's
your number 3?
My third worst film is, I don't think you're going to like this, but it's The Adventures of Pluto Nash.
You take that back. No, I can see that, because
it was disappointing. It's not a terrible film, but as we spoke about before, it was maybe trying to look like it was a little bit older or something, but looking at it from a numbers side of it, which it's always there. I go in there and I go, oh, I'm watching $100 million film. Yeah, let's see what this is like. And it's terrible for $100 million. If they'd spent $10 million on it, my expectations would have been lower. Yeah. And then you go, it's an entertaining enough romp. It's been done so much better in so many other places. But for me, terrible. If they gave me $100 million to spend making a film, I'd put $50 million aside and make money from that, and I'd still make a better film. With my knowledge and my group of friends, you probably want most of that 50 to make it, but it's just a disappointment.
No, I always get, like, from a filmmaker side, I should hate that film. But again, I tried to sort of put that away when I watched it and not really think about it. But yeah, even people ask me today, if somebody gave you $10 million to make a film, what would you do? And I say I would make 10 $1 million films. So $100 million to make that, and it felt a little bit like, almost like a parody of Total Recall. And I'm not even sure which one of them was made first. So, yeah.
Well, and that's the thing, is that the original Total Recall was so much better than that. The remake of Total Recall was a shocker. Yeah. But I still think it was better than The Adventures of Pluto Nash.
No doubt. But it wasn't a comedy.
No.
There's a lot of things that didn't work for this one. Like I said, when you think about the budget and that factor, it should probably be on a worst list. It's not on mine, but I can see it.
Yeah.
For me, it was a little bit of fun seeing some of the actors in it. It was more fun than funny.
Yeah.
And also, who's the love interest in it?
Rosario Dawson.
Absolutely.
Yep.
so that's extra points for me.
And going the other way, as far as eye candy goes, it also had Peter Boyle.
Well, Peter Boyle is eye candy for me. I don't know about you.
Yes, he's just fantastic. It even had Pam Grier. It had John Cleese. Well, that's
well,
we're seeing where the money's gone now, aren't we?
Well, it had Joe Panto.
Yes, Randy Quaid.
Joe Pantoliano.
Jay Moore.
Well, that's the thing. For me, the two characters that I enjoyed seeing the most in it were Luis Guzman and Randy Quaid as his robot Bruno. Yep. Aside for that, Jay Moore's role was actually kind of, they gave him something to work with. Yeah. But Peter Boyle was wasted in this film, I thought.
He's never wasted.
Yeah, true. I mean, I like watching him, but they didn't give him enough to work with. But, it's not on my worst list, but yeah.
Yeah. So,
in some respects, perhaps it should be, but
yeah. So that was my third worst.
Mm-hmm.
My second worst was the Nutty Professor 2, The Clumps.
Well, okay. My second worst, I actually included 4 films and just bunched them up as far as my reaction to them. The sequels were worse than the originals, but they were all not good. And that's Nutty Professor 2, The Clumps, Dr. Dolittle 2, The Nutty Professor, and Dr. Dolittle. For me, I don't know. I hated seeing Eddie Murphy in those roles because, I don't know, it just felt to me like he was slumming it a bit too much. He could have done much better. But then again, they made money, so who am I to judge?
Yeah. So what you're actually saying is you've got a worst 8 films then.
Something like that. But they are really, even when I think back, I wasn't going to watch them again. And even when I think back to, having seen them, I can't remember exactly what happens in which film. And I think it was The Nutty Professor that I actually considered taking out of this list just for the one scene, which was that dinner scene, with Hercules, which cracked me up. But again, it's still a terrible film.
It is.
Yeah. And I now have a feeling that we share a number one worst. Well, because I can't think of any other film being number one, having gone through the ones we've gone through already.
Yeah, true. So what's yours?
Norbit.
Oh, mine's Trading Places. No. It's Norbit as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that was just shockingly bad.
Oh, terrible. Absolutely terrible. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't be surprised if it actually made money.
When you consider that it was done in 2007, so that's the year after he's nominated for awards for Dreamgirls, it's Norbit.
Yeah. There's something about Eddie Murphy that the one thing that I probably like the least about him is that he likes to do the multiple roles, with the makeup,
and the voices,
to look like a different character. Yeah. But even then, by today's standards especially, but even then when it was made, it did not look good. It never looked good.
No.
The makeup is terrible. The only film that I do like when he had multiple roles, really, love it, is really Bowfinger. But
that's only a couple, and he's sort of playing himself, sort of. He's sort of playing the same character.
Norbit was made for 60 million.
Yeah. And brought in 159 million. So it was successful.
It made money. That's what I said. I wouldn't be surprised. So, again, because it's a kid's film, and it sort of was riding on the success of all of my number 2 on that list. So, yeah. Horrible film. And I think it rated 4 point something on IMDb. And yeah, I would go even lower for that one.
Yeah, 4.1. It just shows, though, doesn't it, that you can make a crap film and still make money on it. It is terrible.
Yep. Okay. Well, at least we have some similarities there. Our sort of 1 and 2.
Yep.
In a way. I wonder how we're going to go with our actual top 10 best.
Yeah. So I've got 10, and you said.
Yeah, I have 15. So I'll just run through my 15 to 11, and then we'll compare the top 10s. Well, my 15th is The Golden Child.
Yep. Fair enough.
Which I remember really liking when it came out, and then I was trying to remember it as well as I could, and I wasn't sure about some things, so I actually rewatched it. And yeah, it holds up. It's still funny. A decent film, I think. I think it's probably better than people kind of give it credit these days, but yeah.
Yep. So yeah, not in my top 10.
My 14th is Life.
Yep, my 9th. So
it's
that,
your 9th,
did make it in. Yep.
Yeah, so we'll talk more about it when we get to your 10.
Yep.
My 13th is Metro, which I really actually like, and I'm surprised that I dropped it out of my top 10. It was one of those buddy cop comedies that, I thought most things about it actually worked.
Better than Showtime, at least. That's for sure.
Or I Spy, or,
Yep.
Any of those. We're not even talking about stuff like Tower Heist or whatever. Those were just not good. But yeah, no, I remember it had a lot of laughs in it, and it had a bit of action, and it was made, I think, 97? Yeah, late 90s, yeah.
So it was before those others, yeah.
Yeah. He had a cool character, and Michael Rappaport just really worked well with him, I think.
Yep.
I mean, it's an Eddie Murphy film, but they were both the main character, so even though he's a bit of a sidekick, he actually had probably equal time. And
maybe that's why it works, because rather than being teamed up with somebody of similar fame, perhaps.
And it also has our old friend Donald Logue in it. So.
Oh, good old Donald. Yeah.
Again, it's on IMDb rated 5.5, which I thought was low. To me, it's probably more towards the 7. Like I said, I'm disappointed that I couldn't break it into my top 10. My 12th is also one that I think deserves to be in the top 10, but because it's a top 10 Eddie Murphy list, I don't think it's an Eddie Murphy film. The Academy and Golden Globes would disagree with me, and that's Dreamgirls, because he won the Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actor, and he was nominated for an Oscar.
Yep.
But I think that he was one of the lesser supporting actors in it, not in his performance, but as far as the actual role.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's far from an Eddie Murphy film, but a very, very good film.
Yeah, he was very, very good in it. Didn't get in my top 10.
Mm-hmm.
Decent film, but he was, I think, probably the best part of it. But he wasn't in it enough. Yeah.
I was very impressed. It's like I said, it's kind of a half musical, but also it is over 2 hours long, and I thought it might wear on me a bit, but it didn't. I was entertained all the way through. The soundtrack is actually very good. Jennifer Hudson especially, she's got some pipes. She put in a hell of a performance, definitely deserving of that Academy Award she won for Best Supporting Actress. And Beyonce was actually a very sweet character that turns into a more sort of stronger character. She was always like a kind of a goody-goody in it. But yeah, she impressed me. She was very convincing. The whole cast was great. A bit disappointed, but yeah, didn't crack my top 10. As far as quality of film, it should definitely be in the top 10. My number 11 is also similar to that. It's a film that I really enjoyed. I thought it was really good. What let it down was that I felt it was a little bit like a TV movie.
It's a Hallmark. Is that what you mean?
The Hallmark film, exactly. That's what it felt like. At the same time, his performance was very good. One of his best performances, I think. It's a straight-out drama, and it's Mr. Church, so no comedy really in it, but I can say he was shared the main role in it. And yeah, he was great.
He was. That's in my top 10. I was very surprised at how good it was.
Yeah.
Perhaps shouldn't have been that surprised by what the film was. I think it was a Bruce Beresford film, so that's the sort of film he makes.
Mm-hmm.
But he was very impressive in that. That and a couple of the other films he's made recently really show what he can do. He's can be a very good actor.
Yeah, no, he's a great dramatic actor, as most good comedians are. You know, if we look back to like Jim Carrey, Robin Williams, and people like that, they're just as good in drama as they are in comedy. You know, if they get the right role.
I'd actually say I wouldn't put him as great, but I would say Adam Sandler is a better dramatic actor than he is in comedies. Some of his comedies are so terrible, but when he actually tries to do something a little bit dramatic, he's so much better.
Yeah, because I think that I was going to say he has one speed as a comedian, but that's not true. He has two. And one is like a normal character, and the other one is like a total imbecile. Yeah, exactly, where it's just ridiculous. And the imbecile I like less, and the normal is sometimes a little bit vanilla. But yeah, when he makes like when he gets a good dramatic role, yeah, it almost throws you off as to how good he can be. So yeah, but that also I think applies for Eddie Murphy. When you get a serious look from Eddie Murphy, it's off-putting a little bit because you're not ready for it. You're always ready for that smile and the. But yeah,
true.
So it's a little bit different. But yeah, no, I think he's great, and he was great in it. And again, it's probably one of his top 10 best films. Yep. But just I dropped it down because some of my favorites I had to get in there. You know, more Eddie Murphy classics for me, and the nostalgia factor does come into it. You know, Mr. Church is fairly recent. I think 2016.
Yes, I think so. Yep.
Yeah. So it's up there, but not my top 10.
Yeah. So we're into the top 10.
Yeah. So you want me to start, or do you want to kick us off?
Oh no, you go ahead. Yeah. What's your 10?
My 10th would be a little bit surprising. It's Coming to America.
Yeah, my 8th. So in my top 10 too.
Yeah, I considered dropping it out of my top 10. It's one of those films, again, where Eddie Murphy is doing several roles, you know, and it's a bit too funny kind of comedy that doesn't always work.
Yeah, but less distracting, I think, though, because his secondary characters don't seem to interfere with his main character.
True. And also, there's pretty decent supporting cast.
Yes. Eric LaSalle and the wig. I think you could probably put those separately.
the Jerry curls. James Earl Jones, probably one of my favorite dramatic actors of all time. But watching him in this, even though I thought that it's a little bit beneath him, I still enjoyed seeing him.
Yeah.
It's a kind of film that I both love and hate for different reasons. But it's still, it should be probably in his top 10. Again, it's a John Landis film.
And it's very entertaining. At some stage, we probably should look at John Landis because he's made some interesting films.
He has. And I like a lot of his stuff and I dislike a lot of his stuff. So it kind of depends.
Yeah.
But yeah, also Arsenio Hall in the sidekick
in many roles as well. Yeah.
Yeah, true. Which was a bit weird, but yeah.
Yep.
Overall, a good film. The nostalgia factor, I think, is what gets it into the top 10.
Yep.
Otherwise, I think it would be somewhere in the top 15, but outside the top 10.
Yeah. And as I said, I put in at number 8. I watched it again recently and possibly doesn't stand up as well as some films do, but still very, very good film. Very entertaining.
Yeah. And also, it has Cuba Gooding Jr. in it as Boy Getting a Haircut.
I know. And he is very, very recognizable, but I don't even know if he actually muttered a word. It's a very small part.
Yeah, I don't even know if he remembers being in it.
Well, my number 10 was Boomerang.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's my number 9.
Well, that's not too bad.
Well, considering back when it was probably in my top 5, maybe. Over time, it has aged a bit. The funny in it is no longer that funny.
Mm.
And the subject matter, like the premise of it, it's kind of been done before, but it's still good. It's still interesting. I enjoy the supporting cast as well, Halle Berry especially.
She was very good. Yep.
Yeah, Robin Givens, his two friends, David Alan Grier and Martin Lawrence.
Yep.
And Martin Lawrence, surprisingly, in a more sort of downplayed kind of role.
And Eartha Kitt as well, as the owner of the business that had no control that got him to sleep with her.
Yeah, well, Eartha Kitt and Grace Jones are two sort of smaller roles in it that I think helped really bump the film up a bit.
Yeah.
Their portrayal of those two characters was great.
And for me, it was almost the opposite to you in that it wasn't anywhere near my top 10. And then I watched it again and I thought, you know what? It's actually a better film than I remembered it. So I guess it's all about expectations.
Well, maybe it just settled for the both of us,
Maybe.
because it kind of probably deserves to be somewhere around there, in the top 10, but on the lower part. So, maybe time has fixed it, for both of us from either end. But for me, it is one of the best film soundtracks, potentially top 100 soundtracks of all time. I remember listening to the CD a lot. It's a really, really good R&B soundtrack.
Yeah.
R&B soul. So that, I think, also helps the film. Yeah, it's my number 9.
Yeah, fantastic. And my number 9 was Life.
Oh, cool.
So I think that was your 14.
Yeah, so
yeah.
It's a bit away, but not that far as I guess what we think about it.
Yeah, and it's another one where I watched it again, and I don't know, I felt it actually had a little bit more to say now than when I originally watched it. And then I looked into the background of how much of it was, based on real life and stuff. And it's actually a bit surprising that most of what happened in the film could have happened in real life, in that these rules were around then and that most of the inmates were illiterate and stuff. Obviously, you're not going to have someone reading a letter where every family member has died and all the rest of it. But, it just sort of added a little bit of, I guess, weight to the film, the fact that it wasn't just based on nonsense, which I originally thought it was.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be surprised if things like that did happen and a lot. So that was really kind of interesting. Initially, it was not going to probably even hit my top 20.
Yep.
And then I watched it again, and I was like, I have to put it in my top 15. There's something very, very likable about the story.
Yeah.
And it just kind of works much better than I remembered.
Yeah.
There's an aspect to it that I didn't like. And again, it's the makeup, when they sort of need to age them.
Yeah.
I don't think it's very convincing, but I tried to kind of put that aside and just enjoy the film, and I really did. And directed by Ted Demme as well, which I didn't remember that. Yeah, that kind of surprised me. The same director who made Blow with Johnny Depp and Beautiful Girls. He's made some decent films.
Yep.
That are completely different to this. A lot better than I remember. It's not a perfect film. Just something very, very likable about the story. The 6.8 on IMDb is not far. I would probably bump it up above a 7.
Yeah, me too.
But again, it's a film that actually aged better, than it was at the time, which is unusual.
Yeah. So, what's your number 8?
My number 8 is Meet Dave.
Oh, that's a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah.
Universally canned at 5 on IMDb. Didn't do terribly well at the box office. But look, I don't actually disagree with you. It's not in my top 10, but it's not that far out. It's not a bad film.
The thing about Meet Dave is it's sort of a kid's film, a family comedy. And it's the only probably family comedy of his that I thought really worked for me. He was really, really fantastic in it. And again, he plays dual roles in it. And I can't remember if he plays other roles, but he plays the 2 roles that he's basically Dave, which is the ship.
Yep.
And the captain inside the ship.
Yeah.
And they're 2 very different things. And the way he played Dave so differently to the captain, and it's kind of the same person, but not.
Yep.
It was an interesting aspect to the film. Yeah, I just really thought he was fantastic, especially as Dave.
Yeah, and it's not doing anything, different to a lot of things. It's the fish out of water sort of thing, and trying to, learn about the environment and what's going on around him. And, there's a kid who sort of needs father figure or whatever, but does it very well. Yeah,
and also it has quite a bit of a cast. Elizabeth Banks and Gabrielle Union, Scott Caan.
Yep.
Ed Helms.
Yes.
Yeah, Kevin Hart, who today is a much bigger star.
Yeah, and even Judah Friedlander. 30 Rock, yeah.
Yes. For me, it's one of those that I just wanted to get it into my top 10 for the reason that some of all those, other ones I listed in my bottom 5.
Yep.
When you make a family comedy well, it can actually be a really good film.
Yeah.
So I'm not hating on family comedies. I just thought that those other ones were terrible. This one was pretty good.
Yeah.
So I think that's partly the reason it didn't do as well and that it rated so low by other people is because, I just see it differently. I look for something else in a family comedy. I don't want things dumbed down for me as much as possible.
Yeah.
I still want to see, certain aspects in it that probably don't exist in those other ones. I really do like Me, Dave. I recommend it to people all the time.
It's a well-done family film.
Mm-hmm. So what's your 8th?
Yeah, so my 8 was Coming to America. That was your 10th.
Yep.
So my 7, Beverly Hills Cop 2.
My 6th.
Ooh. So we're not too far off there.
Yeah. It's one that I probably like more than where it placed in a way.
Yep.
Kind of because of Beverly Hills Cop 1, you kind of have to drop it down a little bit because it's a little bit, not exactly of the same, but it's one of the better sequels that was made over time.
Yep.
And it really does have a lot going for it. And especially when you look at Beverly Hills Cop 3,
yeah,
you kind of go, yeah, this one was really, really good.
I know. And for me, it could have been anywhere from 7, where I placed it was probably as low as it was ever going to be, but it could have gone anywhere up to probably top 4. Like it is a very good film.
I agree. Yeah. I agree. Yeah, if a 4th or 5th or something like that, I wouldn't have been surprised at all. On IMDb, it rates 6.5. I think it's more 7.5.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, no.
Yeah, and again, it has a few things going for it. Judge Reinhold coming, from the first film, but as a kind of different character. He's the same guy. It's just he's changed.
He's not as green, is he?
Yeah, and he's both mellow and not so.
Yeah.
So he's like a hippie, dirty Harry, and it's just really interesting, as Billy Rosewood, his character. Really good. And again, John Ashton, I think, is very, very underrated in these films as Taggart.
Yeah.
He's my second favorite character in the Beverly Hills Cop films.
Yeah.
I think he's really, really good.
He is.
And again, Ronnie Cox as well, coming back as Bogomil, the chief.
Yeah.
Yeah, straight away, the film begins with, before you even start watching it, there's something going for it, because a lot of people do love Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah.
So all of these coming back, it's going to give you something. Even Paul Reiser comes back.
It is. And I think, Beverly Hills Cop 3 didn't make it into either one of our lists, but the big thing that was missing there for me was John Ashton. He just, it was a lesser film because it didn't get the band back together and it just was nowhere near as good. So, yeah, I agree with you. He's a very big part of the Beverly Hills Cop films.
I'm going to throw this out there, but as far as Beverly Hills Cop 2 goes, I think he's the best actor in the film.
Yes, probably.
And again, he's a character actor. He's never, a lead. He's always a supporting character. But I think he's probably the best actor there.
Mm.
Even though, there's a lot of good actors in it, Eddie Murphy, Ronnie Cox, but still, Dean Stockwell is even in there somewhere.
Yeah, well, no Jonathan Banks. Otherwise, I'd probably argue with you.
Yeah. Well, it has, but this one does have Paul Guilfoyle in it, so he's pretty good. It's a great film, very entertaining, kept me in it all the way through.
Yep, so that was my 7. What was your 7?
My 7 was Another 48 Hours.
Solid. I didn't get that into my top 10, which was surprising to me because before I rewatched a lot of stuff, I probably had that at about number 4 or 5. Mm-hmm. But yeah, rewatching it for me, it didn't hold up. Obviously, you disagree, but yeah, it's still a very good film. If I had a top 15, it definitely would have been in the top 15. But it just felt like a lot of films at the same time. So it's interesting. You rewatch
a sequel.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just interesting when you rewatch stuff. Sometimes they move up, and sometimes they move down. And for me, that one just moved down.
Yeah, it was initially higher on my list, and then I kind of looked at both 48 Hours and Beverly Hills Cop, and I thought about the sequels and which sequel should rate higher, and that's why I kind of placed Beverly Hills Cop 2 higher. I think it's a slightly better sequel, but I also think Another 48 Hours is a great sequel. Could have been better on several counts probably, but also it's directed by Walter Hill, one of my favorites. He's made other films that are like higher on my favorites list of his films. You don't have to go too far. He made The Warriors. That's one of my sort of maybe top 5 films of all time. So I like his style. There's something about his films that's a little, dark. I think 48 Hours is darker than Another 48 Hours. But there was something interesting with this one. The bad guys weren't maybe they had more screen time, but they weren't as prominent in a way. There was something less interesting about them, but they were still good. Nick Nolte, I actually do like him in almost everything he's been in. I think Nick Nolte probably is, as far as his ability and talent, I think he's one of the better actors we've known over time. I mean, I know he had all these issues in his personal life, which kind of hurt his career. But still, I do enjoy watching him. And yeah, in this one, I think it had too many characters, perhaps, which may have hurt it.
Yes, and something interesting about this film, originally it was 145 minutes long. Mm-hmm. That was the original cut. Then they got Walter Hill to cut it down to 120 minutes.
Yeah, he likes a long film.
Yep, so 2 hours, that probably would have been okay. And then the week before release, the studio cut another 25 minutes out of it.
Yeah.
From what I understand, the shorter the film, the more often you can play it. So that was to try to get it in as many cinemas as possible. Mm-hmm. And for me, it probably may have affected some of those characters that you're talking about.
Yeah, I agree. Some characters seemed a little underdeveloped, and also there were, like I said, too many characters. Some characters were probably unnecessary. It was made for $38 million, which I think is more justified when you think about the extra 40 minutes.
Yep.
I would say probably should have been maybe somewhere between the 25 and 30 million for the final product, but then there were 40 more minutes that were shot that we didn't see, meaning, a lot more money would have been spent. So that's kind of fair enough.
Yeah.
And, making 150 mil worldwide, it did pretty well, and I'm happy for it.
Yeah.
Not a perfect film, should have been better, but it's still, it's on my list. I do like
it. Yeah. Fair enough. And it's those minutes that were cut out. Frank McRae, who was in the original one, as Haddon, he apparently in the script was the third major role in the film. All of his scenes, apart from one where he's standing in the back of a room that was uncredited, all of his stuff was cut.
Wow. I'm guessing there must have been a reason for that.
Well, because they had to cut it down. And so I think it was easier to...
But cutting out a whole character.
All of his storylines, I don't know. But again, still a good film. It's just, it would be interesting if it had been that 120 minutes or 145, if it would have made that much of a difference.
Well, strangely, I think it would be slower, but it would flow better. There was something a bit choppy about it.
Yep.
So I think it probably would improve it. But again, it depends on where it takes the story. It could go either way.
Yeah.
So what was your sixth?
My sixth was Mr. Church, which you had earlier.
Yeah. But again, like I said, a very good film. One of his top 5 performances easily.
Yeah.
So, I'm not surprised that you had it up there.
Yeah, and he was the best part of the film. And
no doubt.
I didn't mind the fact that they didn't explain everything. I read some reviews afterwards that they were sort of saying, I didn't understand it. They didn't explain Mr. Church's character and what his issues were. And I think, well, they pretty much did.
Yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory.
It doesn't have to be spelled out that any more than that.
Well, for some people.
Yeah, well, apparently. And I do agree. It sort of had that sort of, when one of the major characters is a girl, growing up. It has that sort of feel.
Yeah.
But I was really impressed by his performance. It was very, very good.
Britt Robertson is the girl playing Charlie. And she was good, but the actress playing her mother, Natasha McElhone, from Californication, she is... There's something about her, aside from the fact that I think she's gorgeous. She's also very good, in this and in other films. She adds a presence, and it helped this one. I think she was probably my second favorite character, even though she's not in it all the way throughout. It's an underrated film, that's for sure. The 7.6 on IMDb is probably about right.
Yeah. That's just some of his other films are a little low. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So, they got it right overall with the, the score, but placing a lot of other films under that score is almost criminal, but that's fine.
Yeah. Same director that did, I think, Driving Miss Daisy.
Yeah.
Very different films.
Is he Australian?
He is. Yeah. He got a very good performance out of him. That's for sure.
Yeah. The one thing that caused it to drop down my list a little bit was the fact that it felt a little bit like a TV Hallmarky movie. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I ever watched a Hallmark film that I enjoyed as much as this one. So,
yeah, and $8 million. So there goes the that theory that I have that Eddie Murphy won't make one for less than $10 million.
Well, you're probably right at some point, but not today.
Yeah.
But, kudos to him. I mean, he put in a hell of a performance. There was talk about him, potentially getting nominations for that film. But again, because it was a Netflix film, it was cut out of a lot of award shows. I think he deserved to be nominated at the very least. Yeah. Yeah, no, a good one. I don't disagree.
Yeah. So that was my number 6.
Yeah. We're into our top 5s.
Woohoo. Well, my number 5 is Bowfinger.
My number 4.
Oh, well, not far off.
No, and I actually feel like I've ranked it low. I wanted it to be higher. It's one of my absolute favorites, but he has other films that maybe are just a tiny bit more.
Yes, and again, this could have easily been top 4 for me, but then rewatching and watching for first time a couple of films probably pushed this down a little bit. But it is a very good film, very funny. Steve Martin is really good in it too. I think Steve Martin may have written it. Is that right?
I believe so. The thing about it though, and the reason why I left it out of my top 3, and I considered leaving it out of my top 5, but I just couldn't do it. Eddie Murphy is a more minor role, even though he plays a dual role. This is a Steve Martin film.
Yeah.
And a very, very good Steve Martin film.
Yeah.
What year was it made?
99.
99. Wow, I thought it was a bit more recent. So Eddie Murphy playing, both Kit and Jiff Ramsey. He is
awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. But yeah, it's possibly his funniest role.
Yeah.
Directed by Frank Oz.
Yes.
Which is also a big one. Yeah, written by Steve Martin. A very, very interesting supporting cast as well, with Heather Graham and Christine Baranski, Jamie Kennedy.
Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, Terrence Stamp.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very, very good film. And again, if Eddie Murphy would have felt to me like this was like his film, like he's headlining it, I probably would have put it in my top 3. Potentially even number 1, I have to say. It's just that good, but sometimes, a man just wants to run errands.
That's true. But how is this 6.4? That's just ridiculous on IMDb.
No, to me,
it's be close to an 8, It's
above an 8 for me.
Yeah.
It really is. It's that good.
Yeah.
But again, on this list, it drops a little bit down because it's not an Eddie Murphy headlined film.
Yep.
But yeah, it's just as good as any of the other ones here. And it also has a little bit of an indie feel to it. I mean, they are shooting kind of an indie film, sort of Hollywood indie maybe.
Yep.
And it works for it. It's a film that, what was the budget?
55 million.
Yeah, way over what it should have been, should have cost.
Yep.
I assume that a lot of that was salaries.
Yeah, it was probably, would have been. Because if again, I'm only making this up, but if Eddie was getting 10 million, Steve Martin's got to get 10, doesn't he?
Yeah, and Heather Graham at the time would have commanded, she
was very hot
decent,
at the time, yes.
Yeah, and Robert Downey Jr., even for a small role, would have gotten something nice there. So, but again, that's at least, 20-25 mil going into salaries, that's right. And that's just a few people.
Yeah.
And I thought that making just under 100 million, I think, worldwide was a bit low. But for this type of film, I'm not surprised.
But also DVD.
It's not, but it's a film that's not for everyone. It definitely is a comedy, and it's a smart comedy, something that a lot of people don't like.
Yeah.
People like their comedy dumbed down and, something they can understand and not to have to think about why this is funny. To me, it's the best kind of comedy, a smart comedy.
Yeah.
Most of what Steve Martin writes is a bit that way, which tends to be polarizing because not everybody gets it.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But again, it's a fantastic film.
It is. And it's one you could watch every year or two and still enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. So it's your 5 and my 4.
Right.
So
well, what's your 5?
My 5. Well, my 5 is Dolomite. Dolomite is my name. I love that film.
Yeah, that was my 4. Yeah, it was the real surprise because it has just come out. Just watched it on Netflix, and it is surprisingly good, isn't it?
It's surprisingly good. He's fantastic in it.
Yep.
I just, like you said, it's fairly new, so I also saw it for the first time just, in the last week or so.
Yep.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised at also how I couldn't keep it low on the list. It just kept getting bumped up and up and up.
Yeah.
The one thing that had me thinking a little bit is that I found it was a little bit similar to the Mario Van Peebles film, Badass. It was a very, very similar story about basically somebody who wants to make a film. It's a blaxploitation film. A lot of it is terrible, mainly the acting, the fight scenes, whatever. But it's about a group of people who kind of got together to make a film.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, also similar to Bowfinger.
Well, it is, but this one was based on a true story, fairly closely based on it too.
Yeah, I mean, so was Badass.
Yeah, well, that was about his father, wasn't it?
Yeah, about Melvin Van Peebles. I'm not even sure which film is better. I like both of those films. And strangely, the fact that there's like a lot of similarity between them doesn't really hurt.
No.
Badass is more kind of gritty. Again, back to Dolomite.
Yeah, but Eddie Murphy, very good. Wesley Snipes, he played a very interesting dude, didn't he?
He did, and something very campy about his performance in it. I'm not sure if it was intentional or not.
Had to be, surely.
Well, he plays a Hollywood actor who has sort of smallish roles on Hollywood films, but considers himself an actor who gets asked to be on this, low budget blaxploitation kind of film. And the reason he actually gets talked into doing it is because they let him direct.
Yeah.
But again, he just played it very gay, and the character was straight because they showed us that he was straight.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Maybe people were a lot more fluid at the time as far as their sexuality and stuff, in those times. And maybe it's a fair portrayal. To me, I wasn't sure about it. I like seeing Wesley Snipes in it because I like Wesley Snipes, but I wasn't sure about it. But it had a lot of other interesting cameos. Snoop Dogg was one.
As the DJ, the shop DJ. Yep.
And Keegan-Michael Key, I thought, was really, really good. He's the writer.
That's right. Playwright. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And also, a serious playwright that gets kind of pulled into this thing by Rudy, who's Eddie Murphy.
Yep.
And, once he's in it, he kind of starts to realize what he's gotten himself into.
Gone down the rabbit hole, isn't he?
Yeah, but then he quickly kind of goes, you know what? The heart is in the right place.
I'll embrace it. Yep.
Yeah, and he does well. And yeah, I think he's really good in this. For a film to be seen by me now and to shoot straight into a top 5, it says something, I think. So, and it's even higher on yours. So.
Well, that's right. Yeah, you're 5, my 4.
Yeah,
so what was your
those.
3?
Well, my top 3, that was really, really hard because these 3 films I love. And I flipped a few times. Originally, when I put down the list before rewatching and kind of rethinking everything and all that, it was actually my number 1, and that's 48 Hours.
My number 3, and yeah, that probably would have been originally number 2 for me. Yeah.
For me, I think a couple of factors. I like a dark action film, and again, Walter Hill directing, a big plus for me. I really struggled to take it down, but at the same time, that and another film in my top 3 are both kind of action films. One is a little bit more comedy than this one. But yeah, I just love this film. I also, we talk about chemistry of putting 2 actors together, and something about Nick Nolte, Eddie Murphy worked perfect.
It did. In this film, so good.
And worth mentioning, Eddie Murphy's first film. 1982. All this time, it has not aged badly at all.
Yep.
I watched it start to finish, no problem. Nothing about it felt old or worn down to me. It was just really, really good.
Yeah.
Walter Hill, great director and, proves it here, I think, again. It's really Nick Nolte's film more than Eddie Murphy, but I think it's very, very close to even. Nick Nolte was really, really good in it. Eddie Murphy was fantastic, especially for a first role.
Yeah.
He gets introduced by a scene where he's sitting in prison with headphones on, singing Roxanne really badly.
Yeah. That wasn't that bad.
Wasn't good.
I'm worse.
Very, very good film.
It is. Yeah.
Definitely one of my, big Eddie Murphy favorites. And even Nick Nolte favorites. Nick Nolte would be interesting to do one day.
Maybe.
He's had a lot of good films back in the day, not so much, in recent years.
Yep.
This one, it could have easily been my number 1 still.
And it really does stand up still.
Yeah. So it's a shame, but yeah, number 3, but still, yeah, top 3 is good.
All right. So what's your number 2?
Again, that was
Are you going to flip a coin?
a little bit, but not really. It was more of a flip of a coin between my 3 and my 2. But that's Trading Places.
My number 1. Yeah.
Trading Places, one of the best comedies of all time. Eddie Murphy's second film.
Yep.
In 1983. It was made a year after 48 Hours.
Yeah. He started hot, didn't he?
Yeah. He's, at the time, I think a lot of people may have considered this to be a Dan Aykroyd film more than Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
His name comes up first, but I think they were even in this.
Yeah, and the script may have had Dan Aykroyd as the main role, but the way it finished, no.
Yeah, I don't think Eddie Murphy steals the show, but I think they play off each other really well. There's a supporting cast here that kind of lifts it up.
Yeah.
Denholm Elliott, and is it Ralph Bellamy in there? And
he is. Yeah, and Don Amici. Yeah.
Don Amici, that's the one.
The two brothers. Yeah, they popped up in Coming to America. Where he gave them a bit of pocket money, and that was enough to get them started again. Because they were bums on the street.
So that was, a nod to this film. But yeah, no, just a great, great comedy. I look at this one and Coming to America as far as, standing the test of time.
Yeah.
And I think that Coming to America ages not so well, whereas this one just doesn't even budge. It's still as good, as funny. The story has a lot going for it as well.
It is. And, yeah, love Jamie Lee Curtis in it too. She was really good in it.
True. Yeah. And Giancarlo Esposito even pops in there for a little bit. So, yeah, no, it's... I think Frank Oz even has a cameo in it. Jamie Lee Curtis was fantastic in this.
Yeah.
Just kind of showed how likable she can be. Definitely a lot of interesting names pop up in this one. And it's probably got the most sort of classic kind of factor going for it.
Yep.
From his films. But
no.
I can't really argue with it being number 1 on your list.
Yep.
And I assume that our number 2 and 1 are also flipped.
Well, I'm not sure. So that was your number 2. My number 2, Beverly Hills Cop. I'm assuming it must be there for you.
Yeah. Well, If
it wasn't in your top 15,
it's either
I would
that,
be getting you to check it again.
No, it's either that or Tower Heist, and it had to be this one. No, yeah, my number 1 is Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah, fantastic film.
Yeah. Also, wow, that would have been a hell of a time for Eddie Murphy, making 48 Hours in 1982, Trading Places in 1983, and Beverly Hills Cop in 1984.
And also Best Defense in 1984, where he was, I think, only there for about a few days or a week, and he got paid a lot of money.
He really had an amazing run in the 80s.
Yeah.
Because Beverly Hills Cop was 84, and then Golden Child in 86, Beverly Hills Cop 2 in 87, Coming to America in 88. All of those were successful.
Yeah.
There was not one flop in there. The first, I think, film that flopped for him was probably Harlem Nights in 89.
But even that, 30 million budget, 61 million box office. It wasn't.
Maybe it didn't flop. Maybe not.
Not a great film, but it didn't flop.
Yeah, and his first one in the 90s was another 48 Hours, which also was a success. So he had an amazing run.
He did.
It's 7.3 on IMDb. I would say it's 8.5.
Got to be higher than that. Yeah,
at least 8.5. It's one of those fantastic action comedies. More action than comedy, I think. But it's a little bit on the lighter side as far as... The comedy is more sort of situational. It's more about the difference between being a Detroit cop and a Beverly Hills cop.
Yep.
Directed by Martin Brest, who his last film was Gilly.
Ooh. There's a film to kill anybody's career, isn't there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, he really,
Yeah, and the only negative I've got with Beverly Hills Cop is the Axel Foley theme song. And then another
Yeah, no, fantastic film.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was really, really tough, I think, in the top 3 here. But I couldn't be unhappy with it, I have to say.
Yeah. My top 10, number 10 was Boomerang. Number 9, Life. Number 8, Coming to America. Number 7, Beverly Hills Cop 2. Number 6, Mr. Church. Number 5, Bowfinger. Number 4, Dolomite is my name. Number 3, 48 Hours. Number 2, Beverly Hills Cop. And number 1, Trading Places.
Nice list. My top 10? Or do you want me to go to the top 15? I'll go.
Go 15 if you like.
Well, my 15th was The Golden Child. 14 was Life. 13, Metro. 12, Dreamgirls. 11, Mr. Church. My top 10. Number 10, Coming to America. Number 9, Boomerang. Number 8, Meet Dave. Number 7, Another 48 Hours. Number 6, Beverly Hills Cop 2. Number 5, Dolomite Is My Name. Number 4, Bowfinger. Number 3, 48 Hours. Number 2, Trading Places. And number 1, Beverly Hills Cop.
Excellent. So, yeah, some very good films there. So if you haven't seen any of those in the top 10 or 15, well worth checking them out.
Yeah.
Well, that was our best and worst of Eddie Murphy, but we recorded that a couple of weeks ago and things have changed. Eddie has done the dirty on us and released another film, Coming to America. And I think we've both seen it in the last couple of days, Itai.
Yeah, the sequel to Coming to America, the longer-awaited sequel on Amazon.
That's it, yes. So having a subscription and, well, now doing a podcast, that subscription is all of a sudden a tax deduction.
Mm-hmm.
So decided to...
Forever the accountant.
Decided to have a look at that. Going to the numbers, looks like the budget was $60 million. So
wow.
I guess that's not too bad, I guess, for Eddie Murphy and all of his friends and stuff.
Yeah, I was better off not knowing that, I think.
Yeah.
Because I thought it may have been half that.
It could have easily been. They could have easily used the same village, or not village, but civilization as Black Panther, I think. You know, going in and seeing all the zebras and stuff, and then all of a sudden you've got the palatial palace.
The palatial palace, yeah. I think a lot of the sort of the African landscape or jungles or whatever you want to call it, in the movie were actually shot at Rick Ross's property. Rick Ross is a sort of a rapper, musician. So I'm guessing he has a big palatial palace, and he's got a lot of land, and they shot over there. So that would have cut costs a bit, I think. And also the After Effects sort of computerized animals and, you know, the lion and stuff like that were really, really bad, I thought. Yeah.
Oh, shocking. I half expected Eddie Murphy to come out of a lion costume just so he could play another character.
Yeah, he didn't have enough. So, I thought they would have done a lot of that on the cheap. So getting to 60 million sounds like a stretch to me.
It does. I think there's a lot of wages and stuff, yeah. IMDb, well, while we're on the numbers, IMDb has this at 5.4 as compared to the original Coming to America, which is a 7.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not unusual. When a film comes out, people love to get on and bag it. But personally, I don't think it was as good a film as the original Coming to America.
I think it'll probably end up leveling out at about a 6+.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was as good as the original. I am not a massive fan of the original. On my list, it was 10th.
Yeah, 8th on mine.
Yeah.
And this, not as good.
Yeah, I gave my top 15 of Eddie Murphy. This Coming to America sequel will not be cracking my top 10 and not even my top 15, but it's probably just outside it. It's probably just about, 16th. I actually enjoyed it. I didn't think it was terrible. And again, it's a film that was made for Amazon, so it's not going to cinemas. It's really almost has that directly to the fans, for the fans kind of feel.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed some of the cameos, Vogue and Salt and Pepper and stuff like that. It wasn't bad at all.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I enjoyed it. Yeah.
No, and look, I'm very similar. I only gave a top 10. I was looking through it today and thinking, whereabouts would it go? Definitely not in my bottom 3. Definitely not in my top 10. Probably in my top half, maybe. So, 16, 17, 18, somewhere around there. It's not a bad film, for a sequel, but don't race out and see it. Whatever you do, it's okay.
If you have Amazon Prime, definitely feel free to see it because it's not costing you anything additional to the subscription. So I would actually I would watch it for anyone who's curious.
Yep.
And just enjoy it for what it is.
Well, you've seen it twice. You said the first time you slept through it.
No, not exactly, but I did end up dozing off at a certain part, but only for a couple of minutes. So I actually rewatched those couple of minutes just to make sure I didn't miss anything, and I didn't. But when I rewatched, I kind of got another little chuckle out of it. The thing is, I've seen online people, either bagging it like really, really harshly or kind of praising it too much. Well, it's neither. Yeah. It's not bad. It's not great. Some people have gone and compared it to the original by saying the original was perfect, a perfect film. I'm talking to you, Lance Wagner. Gave it like 10 out of 10. There's no way that first film is perfect and anywhere near a 10.
Nah.
It was fun, and so was the sequel. It's not far off the first one, but yeah, Eddie Murphy has a lot of other films that are better than both. So
yeah, I preferred Daddy Daycare, but I didn't mind Daddy Daycare.
I didn't. But yeah, it's it is what it is. It's not bad. Go see it, enjoy it. Try not to crap on it too much, because it was made in good fun, and you can tell by watching it. This was not meant to be an Oscar-nominated film. It's just for fun. So enjoy it.
That's right. And so that does conclude our best and worst of Eddie Murphy.
I hope, for now. I don't think he's releasing anything else in the next few days, is he?
I don't think so. No.
God.
Well, that was our best and worst, Itai.
Yeah, so probably time to have a bit of a listen to what other people had to say. This week we have our first recorded message, I hear.
Yes, that's right. Sean Smithson. He left us an audio message on SpeakPipe. Here it is.
Hey, Itai and Peter. Thank you for allowing me to do a list of my favorite Eddie Murphy films. Kind of difficult to put top 10 and put them in order, but I have two that obviously they have sequels, so we'll just count that as one. So one would be Trading Places, two would be 48 Hours and Another 48 Hours, and then three, Beverly Hills Cop 1 through 3, and Harlem Nights is 4, Coming to America is 5, The Golden Child is 6, Boomerang 7, Bowfinger is 8, Showtime at 9, and Tower Heist at 10. So that's my list of the movies, and like I said, some of those had sequels to them, so those two I just counted as one. But yeah, very cool. Thank you for allowing me to do this, and can't wait to catch the show and see what you have for the next list coming.
Thanks a lot for that, Sean.
Yeah, no, Sean's top 10 is an interesting one. It kind of starts off well and then goes off the rails. So, he was kind of in agreement with us on his top 3, and then yeah, I think we lost him somewhere around there. But yeah, thanks, Sean.
Lost a little bit of respect for you as you went along, Sean.
yeah, something like that. Nah, thanks, Sean. Sean is actually one of the show's best friends out there. He's been doing a lot of sharing for us. He's listening. He's all over it. So yeah, thanks, Sean.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. And so, Itai, you've got some comments from our other socials.
Yeah, we had a few comments come in about good old Eddie Murphy. We had one from Liesl McMurray, and she commented about Coming to America, the sequel.
Yep.
Saying that she thought it was, I quote, not as good as the original. I did really like it, though, but that just may be because I'm old and it was a throwback nostalgia feeling. I agree with that.
Yeah, and thanks very much for commenting, Liesl. Liesl is my sister-in-law, so it's good that somebody in the family is listening to the podcast, because I can't get my wife to listen to it.
Yes, I second that. I don't know how many people from my family have listened so far, and my girlfriend definitely hasn't. So yeah, we're doing well.
Not exactly feeling the love
at all. Another one of our good friends, Rhiannon Nicole, who actually hosts Sinister Parlor podcast, which is a sort of a horror podcast, interviews. She commented saying that she has not watched many Eddie Murphy movies so far, but she really liked Vampire in Brooklyn. So considering that was on my worst list, I'd say agree to disagree, Rhiannon. Rhiannon is also known as Zombie Barbie. Yeah, she's also one of Mighty Productions artists, and and a great supporter of Mighty Productions as well.
Yeah, thanks, Rhiannon.
Yeah, thank you, Rhiannon. We also had Ken McKernan put in a comment. He said that his least favorite is Vampire in Brooklyn, and his most favorite, the best Eddie Murphy film, would be Beverly Hills Cop.
Solid choice.
Well, not far from mine. Although he does say that The Adventures of Pluto Nash is pretty crap as well. So
I agree.
He agrees with you. I kind of agree, but yeah, I think we're being too harsh on that film, but okay. We also had a comment from Marit Haitiainen.
From Finland.
Yeah, from Finland.
Yes,
also
Finland.
A great supporter of my indie and, well, of my work personally as well. So yeah, a great Facebook friend who gets involved with a lot of the things we do, and we love her for it. She wrote in to say, and I quote, "I've not seen that many of his films, but loved him in Beverly Hills Cop. Absolutely hilarious. The worst of the ones that I've seen was Coming to America, and a special mention for his performance in Dreamgirls. Left me impressed with his skills as an actor." I would say, yeah, I'm in agreement with that for the most part. Coming to America, I don't think is one of his worst, but I do think it is overrated. So, yeah, solid comments there.
Thanks, Murray.
And who else have I got? I have Todd Braley, who commented last week. He gave us his top 10 again.
Hello again, Todd.
Yeah, Todd is also my indie featured artist, an independent filmmaker. I'll start from number 10, where he went with one that we don't count, but he does. Shrek was his number 10. His number 9 was Norbit, that you and I both agreed on as his absolute worst. His number 8 is Nutty Professor 2.
Yeah, good. Yep.
Another one that we agreed on as the worst one of the worst. 7th was Coming to America. Fair enough. 6th is Bowfinger.
Yep.
5th, Mr. Church.
Yep.
And he also comments that he wishes that Eddie Murphy would do more drama.
Yes.
And we are definitely in agreement.
He was very, very good in that. Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Trading Places, number 4. That was your number 1, wasn't it?
Yes. Yes, it was.
Number 3, Harlem Nights. That's
Ooh.
a little out of it for us, but yeah. Number 2, Beverly Hills Cop, which was my number 1. And number 1, 48 Hours, which was my number 3. So yeah, no, overall, pretty good.
Yep.
Some interesting choices as far as, Nutty Professor 2, Norbit. Not quite our taste, but, everybody likes something else. So
I'm assuming Todd's only seen 10 of his films, if they're 10 and 9.
I'd say he'd seen a few more, but yeah, yeah. Nah, Todd is a cool dude. And yeah, thanks, Todd, for sending us that. Another return commenter from last week is Matt Staley.
Matty S.
Exactly. I'm going to have a chat with you, Matt, to try and work out what the correct pronunciation of that is. He said, "I haven't seen all of his films, but I do love the classics." And he gave us 7 of the films he loves. And number 7 was Golden Child. Number 6 was 48 Hours. Number 5, Trading Places. Number 4, Harlem Nights. Harlem Nights seems to feature with a lot of people. Maybe we need to rewatch that one.
Nah.
Number 3, Dolomite Is My Name.
Yep.
Awesome. Number 2, Beverly Hills Cop. And number 1, Coming to America.
Ooh.
Yeah, I don't agree with that, but I agree with a lot of it. And again,
Apparently you're not always correct.
Well, that can't be right. I think you're wrong on that one, Peter. But yeah, thanks, Matt. No, I do know that Coming to America is a big favorite with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Just personally, it's not quite the type of humor I prefer, I think. So that's why I think it's overrated and it's a little bit lower on my list. Thanks, Matt, for sending in your comments. From Matt, we go on to Libby McDermott. Libby is an independent filmmaker. I have reviewed her work in the past, and I still need to review one of her films coming soon. She and Matt work together. So yeah, Matt has worked on those films as well. He's been the cinematographer producer, Libby director producer. Her favorite Eddie Murphy works are top 10. Number 10, Vampire in Brooklyn. Number 9, Shrek.
Yep.
She says it's too funny to discount completely. I agree with that. I think Eddie Murphy's great in Shrek. It's just that we don't include animated films.
That's right. It is a very good film. We just sort of consider that doing the voice is only doing half the job, which is why we're not including him.
I don't know about that. It's just harder for me to kind of quantify acting, when I can't see the person. I don't know about half the job, but yeah. Number 8, Beverly Hills Cop 2. Number 7, 48 Hours. It's a bit low for me, but yeah.
Yep.
Number 6, Coming to America, the sequel. She says, refreshing current entertainment. I sure needed to hear his belly laugh this year. I can understand that. It's been a bit of that this year, or this couple of years. Number 5, Coming to America. Number 4, Dolomite Is My Name. Beautiful tribute movie to the life of this man. Yeah, I thought it was a great film.
Yeah, yeah.
Number 3, Trading Places. Number 2, Beverly Hills Cop. And number 1, SNL, which we also timeless work and characters created by genius. I agree. I love a lot of his stuff on SNL. I wouldn't rate it
No, not a film. And I was racking my brain thinking, what's left to be number one? So that explains it. Yep.
Yeah, but she does specify and as her favorite Eddie Murphy works. So
Yep.
yeah, I can see that. If that was the case, I probably would have included Delirious somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, solid list, Libby. Thanks for sending that in. Yeah, that's it for our socials. So yeah, thank you guys. Now I'm even more curious to hear what all these specific people thought about other topics that we're going to hit. So yeah, interesting. And I like the variety of choices as well.
Yeah. Well, thanks again.
Yep. Thank you guys.
Thanks for listening to the Best and Worst podcast.
We'd like to thank everyone who joined and listened to the show. We appreciate you all and hope you'll keep coming back for following episodes. A big thank you goes out to Tam Heinjus for helping us out tremendously and voicing our intro, and Scott Martin for working his magic on the intro sound edit. Also, a big thank you goes out to Asaf Angel for all the help with the logo design. Great work, everyone. Thank you very much. We really appreciate you.
If you like the show, then please recommend the podcast to your family and friends, and subscribe, share, follow, leave a comment. You know the drill. For more information, please check out the show notes. Thanks for listening. We'll be back again next week.